So I've had a look through and I've decided the first thing I'm going to do is get the bed moving, which is obviously resting on now because this is upside down. So we're going to hook up the pulley and give the motor the ability to move this. But before we do that, or at the same time, we need to put a switch in there so that it knows where the bed is. So when you turn it on for the first time, it doesn't know where the bed is because it can be moved whilst it's switched off. So it needs to have some ability to sense that. So when it's all turned on and running for the first time, it does something called home, which is where the pulley will pull the bed in one direction. It'll be this way, and it'll do it slowly until it feels this button has been pressed. There you can see that there. It'll be mounted that way. This switch used to be on the outside and the bed would touch it directly, but because this is so weak, I've decided to move it to the inside so that it doesn't get touched by anything else. Hopefully the belt won't. No, it won't. It'll be fine. So let's see if that motor is working. It's all plugged in. I think I've got my settings right. So we're going to turn it on, let it connect to the Wi-Fi, press a button and see if that motor moves. We don't need the switch there for now because there's no risk of it crashing into anything. If the switch wasn't there, that's what it would do. It would pull this until it reached the maximum length it can move, like that, and it would make a horrible rattling sound because it doesn't know that that's what's happened because the switch is missing. So let's power them on and see what happens. Got some lights. Got some Wi-Fi activity, and I'd say that that's successfully connected. Let's go to the browser and get it ready. Yeah, it looks like it's connected properly, and you can see that heater 1 there reports a fault because it's not connected. The bed heater is correct though, 18.1 degrees in the room at the moment. So we're going to press home Y and see if the motor moves. And like that, we can see it is. So it'll stop it, there we go. It stops because it gives up after a certain amount of travel. It's a way of protecting it from, jamming up if the button isn't working or become disconnected. So that's successful, that is moving. So, my job now is to mount this switch. I need to change the plug on it because the plug is for the old board. So it's a 2-pin. And we need to put one of those 3-pin connectors on there. So the middle pin needs to be left out. Focus, will you? And it's going to be plugged into there. Y stop. Can we just see in there? There you go. Y stop. Right next to the one, right in the middle of the screen there. And then you got X stop. And is that E stop? Actually, I don't know why it needs an E stop. X, Y, and the Z stop. Right. I can't remember what that was for. E1, E0 and E1 are the extruders. The board will support 2, but we're only using 1. That's the heater for the extruder. I can't remember why it needs a stop on it. It might be for filament sensing. So a switch can be triggered if the filament runs out, and then the printer knows to stop. That's probably what it is, actually. Alright then, let's get on with it. So I've lined this up as best I can, marked out the holes that need to be drilled. So I'm going to cut that cable tie now and move that cable out of the way and drill the holes through with a special drill tip that cuts through this kind of metal. There you go, that's the holes drilled. I haven't cleaned them up yet. So you can see it's quite sharp around the edges. It'll be even worse on the other side. There you go. So I'm going to clean that off with a chamfer drill bit. Like this. And there you go. Got them tightened in with a couple of washers and thread locked nuts. So there's a piece of nylon in the top of that nut. You can just about see it there, it's like a black ring. So the vibrations don't work the nut loose. I've also bent in that piece slightly because there was a little bit of contact there. But it's fine. And I've sort of moved it back and forth just so that it presses the button at the furthest extent possible. So you can see it's just pressing there. So let's wire it up. And this is what it looks like on the top side. I've used a rounded cap just in case this cable ever comes across the top of them. The normal flat ones like that might wear into the cable as it moves back and forth as the cable flexes with the bed movements. I've decided to run the cable this way, behind the shield, down here and up behind there, and it's going to come across. Well, there it is now, but we're going to cut this end off and in fact shorten the cable and put the correct header on there and plug it in. So it's going to be pushed down underneath there to keep it below the pulley. It's not going to touch the pulley as long as it's flush to the bottom, and then the cable will come up between the drivers and plug into, where are we? The Y stop, which is right there. So I want to give it a little bit of leeway, and I'll lose a little bit of length when I put the new header on it, so I'm going to cut it about there. And we can get rid of that. Let's get that ready. I bet you've never seen somebody who can do that one-handed. Well, sounds like Buddy's discovered the candle. Oh yeah, that second one's so much better than my first one. It's been a while since I've made a connector. A bit wedged in there. Oh, they're slightly different lengths. How did I do that? No, I didn't measure it when I... Anyway, good thing is the polarity doesn't matter, so you can just whack these in as long as they're on the outside. So the tab is this side. Those holes there, they're not on that side. Those holes there are what actually holds the cables in. If we look, the top sides, as you see them now, are the part that makes contact with the other connector. Oh, come on. There you go. But on the bottom, there's a little tiny tongue on this side. And I'll tilt it that way so you can sort of see it. There you go. And that is what holds it in to the connector. Come on, let's get focus on that. Which way are we going to do it? That way to make it easier for the cable. So we push it in and we wait for it to come up there. So that's locked in now. And the same for the other one. Okay. That'll do. Don't want to push that in here. Gonna use a rounded screwdriver, not to cause any damage. Not going to push too hard. And we'll bring it. We'll bring it through those connections. And I'm not even going to look again. I'm pretty sure it's the closest connector we're looking for. Alright, so in theory, that adds this sensor to the Duet. So now the Duet should know when the bed is at its furthest position. So in other words, when we move, I can't do it with one hand here. So when we move the bed all the way that way, and it presses that button, that tells the computer chip in the Duet that it's at its furthest most in one direction. And then we program into it how far it can travel this way in millimeters. It doesn't need a button this end. Some builds do, but we don't need to do that on this particular one. so we know that it can travel exactly 200 millimeters. So we tell the board that, and then it will never push it this way more than 200 millimeters. So let's test to see if that button is working. She's plugged in here next to the Z stop, which isn't plugged in on the outside actually, it's just there. So we haven't been able to test it. This is the first button test. Let's knock it on. Can't see the lights. They're on. There you go. And let's press the button. There you go. So you see down here we've got a light flashing. So now we're going to home it, or tell it to home. It's not going to be able to actually move, but we'll see the motor spinning. And I'll press the button and see if it responds to the fact that that button has been pressed. We're simulating that the bed has physically moved because the motor's turning, and then the button being pressed will tell it to stop. I'm going to have to do it quickly because it gives up pretty quick as well. So, right, here we go. There you go. My arm was in the way, wasn't it? Yeah. Let's do that again and see if it happens. I'll try my left hand. There you go. I missed it just at the beginning, so we'll do that again. I'm going to try and do it a little bit faster just to demonstrate the point. See what happened then? It goes slower. It touches once, it backs off, and then it comes back slower. But I've sort of been moving it away too quickly too slowly to see that. Let's try it again. So we've got the fast run. Press it. Now it's coming back slowly. I press it a second time, and that's how it gets its precision. And there you go. Okay, well, I would call that a successful test. So, the next thing to do now is put the belt on, make sure all the cables are tucked out away and not colliding with the belt, and actually get it to home the Y-axis, which is the bed moving like this, without any assistance from me. I should be able to press the button, homes, and it's hunky-dory. And that is one big step complete. Oh, and I finally removed the LCD screen, so, well, I won't be using it anyway. It's not compatible with the Duet, and I'm going to be putting a better one on anyway. Anyway? That's because I was thinking of the name of the LCD screen. It's called a Panel Dew. It is in place. It turns out that original screw is now grinding into that wall because I've had to tighten it to avoid those power cables, but I can't tighten it enough. So we're going to swap it out with a smaller screw, probably that silver one, and for the other side as well. It will mean that it'll be slightly out of alignment, and I can't be bothered to take that net out, so I think I'll just wing it and hope that there's enough room there. If not, I'll move that cable tie up a bit and cut off this excess that'll be hanging then. It should be alright. Okay, so I got it fitted and it's looking good. So we can see now that they are miles away from the cables, and because they're shorter screws, they're not sticking through the back and grinding in like it did there to this piece. Alright, so the only thing I'm annoyed about, but it can't be helped, well it could be, but it can't be bothered, is when the bed comes all the way to the end, and you can see that the belt just slightly oversteps the pulley. Well, when we look directly down you can see there's a sway there, but it's not going to ever go any further than that mechanically, so there's no chance of that falling off. It's definitely fine. So we bring it all the way this way. Right. Something underneath is stopping it. It was the cable leading to the bed. I haven't tie that down there yet. Anyway, so as it comes here, you can see that the button gets pressed. God, we should focus quicker. There you go. Button gets pressed, and the tail from the belt isn't reaching the pulley there. So this looks like it's going to work. So motor's linked up. It can move the bed and the button. I don't know if you can hear it clicking. That's a good sign. So in theory, we turn this upside down, power it on, press home, and the bed should move all the way back, and that's the job complete. That's the Y belt setup. Okay, so here we are. We've turned it upside down. This is the top side of the printer. Should be all plugged in. Let's make sure we can freely move this. And I can hear the switch going, so that should be okay. So it's a little bit difficult just to get to the very end there, but that belt will stretch, it's fine. So we're looking to turn this on and send it the signal to home it, which should, if everything works fine, move this all the way to the back. It should sense that it's reached as far as it can go. It should back it off quite quickly by like an inch, and then bring it in really slowly, so it can detect exactly where it finishes. Yeah. So the risks are the button isn't working, and this travels all the way that way until it physically can't move anymore, and the motor doesn't stop, it just keeps spinning, and you'll hear a horrible grinding sound, and I'll have to pull the power off and figure out why it's not working. And it should be okay though, so let's turn the computer and press home Y. Oh shit, like that can happen. So, I know what's happened. It's kind of obvious. The motor is going the wrong way round, because the button's over here. And it's going extremely fast, which is concerning. I'll have to re-watch the video actually to see how fast it was going. Didn't expect that. Why is that? Probably the step count is wrong. I can't remember what the real term is for it. Right, let's figure it out. Okay, so I've gone into the configuration files, and I've swapped the direction of travel for the y-axis, which is this way. That's what this is. And I've also slowed down the speed that it homes at, which is separate to what I might need to eventually do, which is change the amount of steps that the motor moves per millimeter. So the computer doesn't understand millimeters because it doesn't know what size my pulleys are, it doesn't know how big the belt is or anything like that. It just knows pulses to send to the motor. That's why they're called stepper motors, because they move in little pulses like this. And I have to tell it how many pulses to move to achieve 1 millimeter, and then it knows how fast it's moving in real life, so to speak. It's sort of like a dumbed down version of it. But anyway, let's see if it works. Let's move it away so we can see it travelling to where it's meant to be. And hopefully this time it'll work. Yes. I can also hear a sound coming from it now, which is because there's too much power going into the stepper motor. I can hear like a whistling sound, so that's why I turned the power off. And it's also moving extremely quickly, which tells me its steps are out. Strange. It shouldn't be. I'll have to figure it out. What we wanted to achieve has been achieved. We've got it to home, and it's moving. The rest is configuration. So I think that's chapter 1 complete. Yeah, definitely. the next step really is configuration. So I also need to get. Oh, it's not too bad. I need to change the oil in it as well, because it is feeling a bit dry. I thought it was going to be bone dry listening to it. So there, yeah, happy with that. Chapter 1 finished.